Greetings, historians. I'm Drew, and welcome back to House of Ideas Historian. When I first started talking about this channel, the most requested topic is something I'm going to call, Where Do I Start? The MCU has ignited a spark in many fans to expand their knowledge of the lore, of the stories, of the characters. That's even how I got my start into this world. But there's a very obvious hurdle in doing so. I've heard this story over and over again. With a genre this big and so many books out there, people ask me all the time, where do I even start? I chose a title that's very near and dear to me to get us started. The Avengers are a pop culture phenomenon. In the past 8 years, their popularity has grown even more. With the release of Avengers Endgame, that power that they hold is almost explosive. The Avengers hold a very special place in my heart. I've been reading the Avengers for the past 6 years. I started all the way at the beginning, Avengers number 1, 1963. In that time, I've read everything Avengers leading all the way up till 2016. If that's something that you want to do, this is the channel for you. Oh, 60s comics. There's something truly magical about the simplicity that is Marvel circa 1963. The Marvel Universe felt so organic and so interconnected. Not only was it easy to read the entire Marvel lineup, but the stories flowed together. In more recent years, there are certain characters that seem to be all over the place, with no concern for what's going on in other lines. Take Wolverine, for example. In 2010, Wolverine was on 2 X-Men teams, his own X-Force team, and 2 of the Avengers teams, and decided he had time to headmaster his own school. On top of that, he had 2 solo lines. Maybe death was good for the poor guy, gave him a chance to rest. It wasn't always that way. In the early years of Marvel, Stan Lee and the creative teams took special care to make sure there wasn't any overlap on characters. If I'm reading Avengers and Iron Man is present, then he would not make a special appearance in Fantastic Four that month. On top of that, if the book referenced something cool that happened previously, then they would tell you exactly where to find that story so that you could read more. It's more than just the interconnectivity of the books that I love. There's a magic of simplicity. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the convoluted. The 2012 Avengers by the amazing Jonathan Hickman wove a fantastic tale that leads us all the way up to 2015's Secret Wars, and with it, the destruction of the multiverse. And I loved it. But there's an undeniable beauty of the simplistic. Avengers number 2 gave us a story of an alien that can swap bodies with anyone and believes that if he could just stop the Avengers, the whole world would fall. The world of 60s Marvel may be a relic in today's standards, but I truly do find it a thing of beauty. Avengers started in the early years of the Silver Age. Stan the Man gave us the first family of Marvel just 2 years earlier in 1961. The Avengers started off pretty close to how the MCU gave it to us in 2012. Prior to the movies, we were introduced to the main characters in their own movies. Same thing happened in the comics. The villain was even the same in both, Loki. The biggest difference will be the lineup. In 2012, we saw Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye as our starting lineup. In 1963, a slightly different lineup was presented. Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man, and the Wasp. Notice a lack of Captain America? The Shield Slinger won't make his Silver Age debut until issue number 4. Do you know who coined the term Avengers? If you guessed Janet Van Dyne, you were right. The Wasp gave us the iconic name. The creative powerhouses behind the Avengers are two of the most familiar names of the early years of Marvel. Stan the Man Lee, author, and Jack the King Kirby, artist. These two men form the bedrock of the entire house of ideas. They are both credited with the creation of almost every major Marvel hero of the time. September of 1963, we see Avengers #1 hit the newsstand for the very first time. Starting on an every other month cycle, this hit run was moved to every month starting after issue #7 in 1964. This first run of the Avengers lasted for a very long time. Avengers Volume 1, or Avengers 1963, ran for 402 issues until the team was moved to a pocket universe as part of the ill-fated Heroes Reborn story. With this, the team started a new number line, starting again at issue #1. Why here, you might ask? Why 1963? That is ultimately a question you will have to answer for yourself. But here are my 2 cents. Frankly, there's no better place to start than the beginning. Reading the roots of the characters gives a more in-depth look to where they are in 2020 and further. I have mentioned my love of the old comics, but it goes deeper than that. Reading this first run, you are introduced to themes and traditions that follow throughout the Avengers' history. Ever wonder why it was such a big deal that Captain America said, "Avengers, assemble," in Endgame? This is one of the longest running traditions, finding its roots all the way back in issue #10 when Thor shouted it for the very first time. Since then, the characters have used it as a battle cry in the team's most dramatic moments. Honestly, it was a crime that it wasn't included in the movies earlier. Knowing you want to read from the beginning and knowing how to do so are two totally different things. If you want to buy a copy of Avengers #1, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. A low-grade copy can go anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000, and it only goes up from there. Luckily, this isn't the only way to read comics anymore. Let me introduce you to the Marvel Epic Collections. These things are a thing of beauty. You can pick them up at your local comic book stores for about $35. There's a couple things that I love about these. First off, they are full color and amazing art. You get to read the stories in a way you haven't seen for years. The other thing, they're numbered, so it is so easy to follow your favorite characters from book to book. And the last thing, they are sexy on the shelf. This is my preferred way to read old school comics. But it's not the only way. You're going to hear me talk a lot on this channel about Marvel Unlimited, and for good reason. For only $10 a month, you gain access to just a ton of books. And I mean, look how easy this is. I think there's no better place to start than the beginning. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you want to hear my thoughts on the first few issues of Avengers? I joined 2 of my best friends in a book club style read through of Marvel's earliest stories. You can find us at the Bag and Board podcast. Keep an eye out for that. As for now, give me a like, hit subscribe for all future content, and Excelsior, true believers. Till next time.